Hi everyone, I hope you had a safe and fun Thanksgiving weekend. I unfortunately am being quarantined right now due to COVID-related incident. I came into contact with someone who tested positive, so unfortunately I am not able to give my speech in front of anybody, but I hope you all enjoy it nonetheless. Now 2020 has been quite the year, as we're all aware, quite one for the books. Now through all the madness and mayhem of 2020 and all the uncertainty, we got to vote in a presidential election. For many of you, it may have been your first time voting. Regardless if it was your first time or not, thank you for voting. You got to participate in the democratic process of being an American. That being said, I understand that Trump has still refused to concede defeat to President-elect Joe Biden, even after weeks of court cases and counts and recounts. Now, you may be asking yourself, if Biden has more votes than Trump, shouldn't that be all that matters to determine the winner of the election? Unfortunately, it does not work that way with a presidential election. In most cases, that would be the case. But the rules are very different when a president is elected. Now, according to an article on NPR.com, more than 156 million Americans cast their ballots to vote in the 2020 election, which is by far the most ever. However, your vote has little to no meaning or impact on the outcome of a presidential election due to the system known as the Electoral College. In order for America to have a fair and just voting system, the Electoral College should be abolished. It's an outdated voting method. It's anti-democratic, it's racist, and it's most importantly, it prevents your vote from being heard. So today I'm going to spend a little time talking with you all about what the Electoral College is and how it works, why it's biased and outdated. And we're also going to spend some time talking about what would have to be done in order for the Electoral College to be abolished, and how that would change the voting landscape in America. And then finally, we're going to talk about how the popular vote going forward would impact America and ensure that your vote is being heard, not just an Electoral College vote, regardless of who wins the popular vote. So now the Electoral College was developed in 1787 for many different reasons. First, some founding fathers wanted Congress to be the ones who picked the next president. Other founding fathers felt it was fair that the popular vote decided who was the next president. Now, according to an article written by David Roos titled "Why Was the Electoral College Created?", they came to an agreement or a compromise that is now known as the Electoral College. Now, he goes on to explain how it works. So every 4 years, a temporary group of electors equal to the total number of representatives in Congress are created per state. This is not your vote to determine who wins a presidency. So this vote is essentially who determines the presidency, not your vote. Each state is assigned a certain number of electors based on the number of Senate seats and House representative seats that are located in that state. Now, according to NPR's podcast, All Things Considered, slavery played the biggest part in why the Electoral College was created. And they quote that the Electoral College is really about the fears of the southern states at the founding of this nation that the larger northern states would dominate. So that's essentially the bottom line here is kind of how that all got started. And I'm sure you've all heard the phrase battleground states when you hear newscasters or whoever discussing the election. These states are essential in getting the electoral votes necessary to win the election. Now, the downfall of this is that many states don't get their vote heard. Now, according to Allison Waller and her article in the New York Times, there are a total of 538 electoral votes up for grabs. The projected winner of a presidential election must obtain 270 of those votes to be declared the winner. The U.S. population is currently at 331 million people, okay? So there's something not quite right here. Let me break the numbers down for you a little more. When 270 votes are representing 331 million Americans, that breaks down to one vote equaling one vote representing 1.3 million Americans. Something's not quite right there. Now, the Electoral College is a flawed system and has had major implications for our nation, as we saw in the 2000 election with Bush and Gore and the 2016 election with Clinton and Trump. The future president lost the popular vote, but still won the election because of the Electoral College. Now, because of this, Many people lost their faith in the voting system and don't feel like their vote counts, and they stop voting because of it. So now I'm going to spend just a little bit of time talking with you about how abolishing the Electoral College would work and how it would impact the country. Now, according to the New York Times article I mentioned earlier, a Gallup poll indicated over 61% of Americans agree with abolishing the Electoral College in favor of the popular vote. And now, in order to abolish the Electoral College, a constitutional amendment requiring 2/3 approval from both the House and Senate, as well as a signing of a formal consent from states, would have to be done. Or you could also have a constitutional convention called by 2/3 of the state's legislatures. So this hasn't essentially happened because the House and Senate have been flipped or split, and this has been attempted over 670 times with no avail. So now another way to go about doing away with the Electoral College is something called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Now, according to an article on NPR.com written by Laurel Wamsley, the compact is a contract that between states that agree that rather than giving their president electors to the candidate who wins the most votes in their state, they will award all of their elector votes to the candidate who wins the most popular votes in the country. Now, this essentially does not abolish the Electoral College, but it would allow the president to be elected by a national popular vote. This is kind of a loophole and a way to get out of that. So far, 15 states have signed on with that agreement. So this would allow each voter to get their vote heard and it count equally, and it essentially would completely restructure the landscape of the voting system. So now let's discuss how the Electoral College would impact you as a voter and abolishing that. The popular vote is a fair vote, and the biggest advantage of the popular vote ensures you and your vote matter. Like I previously stated, 2 elections in the last 20 years have had a winner that the popular vote didn't win the election. Counting the popular vote assists in preventing that controversies like this don't ever happen again. So today, I'm really glad I got to spend a little time with you guys talking about the Electoral College and why we should get rid of it. It's important to be informed on these subjects and help make educated and informed decisions going further in your future. You were informed on how the Electoral College works and where it began, how abolishing the Electoral College would affect the country, and finally, the advantages of having only the popular vote matter for a presidential election. When a candidate is leading by more than 6 million votes, I think it's safe to say that America has spoken on who they want as their leader. The Electoral College is outdated and clearly no longer effective and should be done away with. Now, if you agree with me, contact your local congressman, or you can also go to www.nationalpopularvote.com and tell your local legislators to pass the National Popular Vote. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you'll take some action and help and make America become a country where every single person matters. Thank you.